How's it going, everyone? I'm Motive Games, and today we're going over another Last Epoch build guide. This time is going to be for Black Hole Ignite. The whole concept with this build is we're stacking up as much fire resistance as possible to be able to get ridiculous ignite chance using a passive in Black Hole's tree. As usual, there's going to be a build guide down below. If you want to use that to follow along, you can check out skill progression, passive progression, item sets in there. Make sure to utilize it. Now, let's start in the passives. We're going to start with 8 points into Arcanist, 7 points into Elementalist, and 5 points into Arcane Flames. We want fire resist, increased fire damage, and this will give us nearby ignited enemies, just helping our damage with Flame Reave a little bit for the times where we'll use that for clear. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and come to Sorcerer and put 5 points into Mana Shell and 5 points into Wisdom. This way we get some mana regen and as well as just a little bit of armor for survivability. After that, we're gonna dump 8 points into Pyromancer, 2 more points into Wisdom, 5 points into Lavamancer, and then 5 points into Inferno. The whole idea here, fire damage, fire skill ignite chance, fire pin, fire damage leech. This one's very important because this is what's going to give us the sustainability to actually survive in a lot of maps, as well with Flame Ward, one of our skills, but very important. Ignite duration also is a very large amount of damage increase for us. We're going to start picking that up with Chronomancy with 8 points there, and then we can go ahead and dump 2 more points into this. You can technically fill it out to 8, but the moment you get 40 points, I recommend we swap over here to Spellblade, so we can put 5 points into Elemental Affinity, 5 points into Flamewalker, and then 5 points into Incinerating Aura. This gets us Enchant Weapon. So the whole idea was we fill out 40 points on this one to get to Black Hole, and then 15 points on Spellblade to get to Enchant Weapon. The build now functions because you have both your abilities. Once you get Black Hole, you can technically play it, so you could start playing this without 15 points, but Spellblade's Enchant Weapon does end up being our big burst phase, and so there may be some bosses that you'll find will be difficult without Enchant Weapon. However, for monoliths, you're perfectly fine to run at the moment you get Black Hole. Now, without that out of the way, let's put that last point into Inferno. Go ahead and pick up Elemental Ascendance at this point, and then I want to drop 4 points into Recollection. So it's 4 points Elemental Ascendance, 4 points Recollection. This is going to be important for getting 100% uptime on Black Hole. Then 2 more points into Elemental Ascendance, and this is all I have for passive points for now. You can max this out. Once you're done maxing out Elemental Ascendance, there's not too much else in this tree that I actually find too valuable. So I would say come over to Rune Master and start throwing points into Sphere of Protection, get Circle of Elements. I'll have these points filled out into the build guide all the way up to 100, so you can keep following along if you wanted to play. Now, first up for skills, we got Black Hole. Very simple ability. You're gonna place it down. It's gonna damage things around it in this small little area. So we're gonna go ahead and put 3 points into Catalyst and 1 point into Red Giant. This is gonna convert it to fire, give it massively more duration, but it no longer sucks enemies in towards its center. After that, it's 3 points of Flaming and 5 points of Heat Wave. This is the entire thing the build is built around. You're gonna get Ignite Chance per uncapped fire resistance, 1 to 10 ratio, so every 10% fire res that you go over 75, you get 1 stack of guaranteed ignite per second. After that, pick up Binary System. There technically is a situation where it's like if you have 2 to 3 stacks of Heat Wave, you can go ahead and pick this up, but it shouldn't take you too long to do that anyways. This is just free 100% multi-damage for this build, so there's no downside. Just pick it up, you'll be happy with it. Next up, 1 point into Time Dilation, 4 points into Rifts. This is going to make the area smaller, but again, we're focusing on 100% uptime with this. So, and the mana is also helpful because this is a very mana-hungry build at first. Once you've got that, 2 points into Stability, 20% duration. With a little bit of itemization, you should now have 100% uptime where you can put down your Black Hole, and then right as this one is finishing, the second one's coming up again. Just like that. Second most important skill, Enchant Weapon. It has an active and a passive that buffs your melee attacks. Not really a big deal for us. We're gonna start with 2 points into Immolating Strike and 2 points into Eternal Flames, then 1 point into Conflagrate and 4 points into Searing Conflagration. The whole idea here is now whenever you activate Enchant Weapon, it will immediately consume all Ignite stacks on enemies. As you can see here, we're about to hit 100 stacks, and then once we hit peak at like 150 and so, we'll eat them all, bam, 1.3 million damage. It's doubling all the damage that are coming from the ignites, so this is your burst button. The moment that you've got max stacks on an enemy, go ahead and pop it, and then while it's on cooldown, because it's technically active during that time, you'll also have 25% more increased ignite duration. So once you've got Searing Conflagration maxed out, go ahead and fill out Eternal Flames, get that to 5 points, and then fill out Concentration. This will give us more active duration, so we're getting the benefit for longer. From there, it's not too important what you do. I like to put points into Celerity because we're going to be using Flame Reave for mob clearing and monoliths. And then Immolating Strike, also kind of the same thing. The third most important skill and the last key skill, Meteor. We are only playing it for Craterborn, so 5 points straight into Craterborn. This gives you 75% fire pin. This lasts for 6 seconds and is global, so the whole idea is we're gonna drop Meteor, and then go ahead and drop our ignite stacks. They're gonna go ahead and start stacking up, getting an insane amount of damage. We pop everything, 1.7 mil right there. It really does increase the damage by quite a bit. There you can see it was something like 50%. So once we've got that, we're going to put 1 point into Force of Impact and 3 points into Aftermath. This is going to make it so that it refunds some of its mana, so it's not such a burden on us when we do cast it. Once you've got this, the build is very mana efficient, especially with what we've put into our passives to make sure we get some regen. So you really shouldn't be worried about mana as long as you're just casting these spells. After you've got Craterborn and 3 points of Aftermath, just put them wherever you want. I filled out the Shrapnel side, not because it's good, but just because I couldn't think of anything I cared about. If there's someone in the comments who feels like there is something that'd be very helpful, go ahead and recommend it. But I don't think it's really has a big deal. Put it wherever the hell you want it. From there, we have 2 flex slots. Now, neither of these pieces are going to be important to the build, but these are the ones that I find the most helpful in order. We're going to start with Flame Reave. Flame Reave is what makes it so that I don't hate my life when I'm running through the monoliths. We're going to get 2 points of Heat Wave, 2 points of Slash and Burn, 2 points of Unbound Flame, and 2 points of Lingering Embers. The whole idea is every time we hit with Flame Reave, we get a stack of Fire Aura, which will help kill enemies as we run along the map. From there, 5 points into Dancing Flames to get higher attack speed and lower the mana cost, 1 point into Rhythm of Fire, and 4 points into Engulfing Flames so that we get some Spreading Flame chance alongside it. So with this setup, you're basically just going to be shooting out fire right in front of you as you run along, and then we get these auras, and this aura will help clear some mobs as we run around the map. It's not a bad ability, but it's definitely going to pale in comparison for damage against bosses. As a note, this ring right here, Sunwreath, is going to help this ability change into a circle effect, which I actually quite like for doing monoliths. I would recommend wearing it for monoliths and then maybe swapping out to something that's slightly better, but this is always going to be a good ring for this build. Same concept. So Ruby Cleaver can really help the damage quite a bit as well because it gives it some flat melee fire, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. The whole idea is you're just using it to clear mobs. You won't really touch the skill in bossing. You can, but it's always going to be less damage than an active black hole. And for the last one, we've got Flame Ward. This is just a defensive shield. Your panic button helps keep us alive as we're running through monoliths. We're going to do 3 points of Dilation, 3 points of Energize, and 2 points of Recollection. This will give us ward retention, ward per second, then 3 points of Prismatic Buffer and 3 points of Barrier. While Flame Ward is active, we will take multiplicative less damage in elemental damage and on hit. So massively reduced damage while it's active, and then 2 points of Stalwart Defense and 3 points of Desperate Defense to give us percent missing health granted as ward. As you get extra points in this, you can just round them out, throw them wherever you want. For me, I'm gonna go ahead and say I just want to put it in Stalwart Defense. As alternatives to these, technically speaking, if you don't want to do Flame Reave, you could do Disintegrate, Volcanic Orb, Fireball, or Nova. I've seen all of these kind of work. Flame Reave is just the one that makes the most sense to me since we're already running Enchant Weapon. I feel like they pair really well together, but with the right setup, I think any of these could work. So keep that in mind. And then for Flame Ward, Teleport is a nice little alternative. You can come down here and pick a Wormhole to help you recover your Black Hole cooldown a little bit faster, but I don't think it's necessary if you want to teleport, especially when you're running monoliths. I think you can just drop Meteor or drop Enchant Weapon and kind of run without them because the mobs should be much easier to kill than bosses, right? So that's going to be it for skills. All right, now for itemization, we're going to come over here to the Last Epoch build planner. I've set aside some important lines and different pieces of gear that I think should be relatively easy for you to build up to for this build. First one is going to be a wand. You really want an Exalted Wand with increased elemental damage over time. It's a huge amount of damage buff. The base doesn't matter. This is the best base we can get, and this is like a super early wand that you can find. So like, it doesn't matter if you've got a Dragonhorn wand or a Roman wand, as long as it's got increased elemental damage over time, fire damage, or damage over time, because these scale exactly the same, 70 to 105, 70 to 105. They both apply to it, whichever one you can get on there. Fire pin in the suffix is a little bit helpful, but there's really nothing else. This is super rare, so if you don't have it, oh well, like it's fine. We have enough fire pin thanks to Craterborn, but it would be nice. Ruby rings. This gives you increased fire damage and a flat amount of fire resist. Really helpful. We always love to see that. Increased elemental damage over time and increased fire damage on the affixes, and then fire resist on the suffixes. You'll notice I have crit avoidance on here. The whole idea is you want to get to 100%. This armor piece and this headpiece also have crit avoidance. With good rolls on this, you would only need maybe one of these. Don't push yourself over 100% crit avoidance, okay? Get yourself as high as you can with it to 100%, and then just try to replace that with a different line. You'll notice that a lot of the pieces I'm wearing have things that aren't flame resist on it, and that's because I don't want you going into this build and just ignoring your resistances to stack as much fire resist as possible. It's not gonna be that great for you at that point. You're gonna start getting one shot all the time. That's why on this Mystic Plate, you'll see I have physical resist on here. On this headpiece, I have endurance threshold and increased health. On this belt, necrotic resistance, void resist. Don't ignore your other resistances. Put fire resist on a few key pieces of gear that you feel like you won't use on other builds, specifically like these ruby rings, this ancient scroll that you're gonna want with increased level to black hole on it. Those are great places to put your fire resist. But like these boots, maybe not. Speaking of the boots, one of these pieces, either the belt or the boots, needs to have increased cooldown recovery. Exalted, so you can get to around 25%. That's what's going to give you that 100% uptime on black hole. For the amulet, gold amulet is the best base, fire resist and lightning resist, so it helps round out our lightning, gives us more damage. We could throw fire pin on there. I really like exalted elemental resist on here. This one, if you wanted to throw exalted fire resist on here, you probably could, but just again, don't neglect the other stuff. For this shield, you don't even need this specific shield. The whole reason we're using this is for two specific things. One, 75% fire resistance. Great. The second one is gain ruby venom for 10 seconds on block. We'll have a 35% block chance, 15% increased fire damage per stack of ruby venom. So there's a chance that every time you block, you'll be able to get more and more damage. It's pretty helpful. You could pick up a Targe, for instance, and give it exalted fire resistance. You could roll 70% and it's basically the same thing. So that's not necessary. This is the budget option. This is the medium option, and there is actually a high-end option, being Raya's Light. This shield is very rare. It has a pretty low drop chance. You have to target farm it for the Black Sun to get it half of the time. If you can get this shield, it's actually very good because it will not only increase your damage, but it also gives us the 75% fire resistance. It's a little bit less on block chance, but it has slightly higher block effectiveness. You lose out on that ruby venom, but that's okay, because for every stack of ruby venom, you got 15%. It's very rare that you end up anything higher than like 3 stacks. So the 75% should be more damage. So Raya's Light would be great. And if you can get LP on this and throw fire resist on it as well, man, that would be busted. Overall, I would say this is kind of the things you want to focus on, just like good defensive gear, get of your accessories, or 3 to 4 pieces of your defensive gear that ends up being with flame resist for offense. And that's all you need. Lastly, we're going to talk about idols. This idol, this 4x that is increased ignite duration, is going to be very helpful. 20% and higher. If you roll anything that's like 7 to 15%, I really wouldn't bother. Just move on, get away from it, run the 25% and be happy if you can. Outside of that, defensive idols, maybe 1 or 2 of them that are like 15% flame resist. The rest of them, you should have your other resistances to hedge them up to 75, and then ideally percent increased health where you can. That's pretty much going to be it for this build from here. Just fill these out the best that you can. For a quick idea on the damage combo, you're just going to be going Meteor, drop your black hole, let your stacks come up. You can throw some flame Reaves in the meantime, and the moment that it's done, go ahead and consume, drop your Meteor, drop your black hole again, rinse, repeat. Notice our mana's getting really low. A big reason for this is because we're using Flame Reave. This is why I say, like, don't bother using Flame Reave when you're bossing, because you're just going to kill your mana and make it harder for you to actually run these combos, because the moment you drop below 50%, you're gonna hate it. You saw there, I'm sure that we are popping Enchant Weapon. We're hitting for like 1 to 2 million against the dummy. That's a dummy. It's not gonna hit that hard against bosses, because boss DR is gonna kick in, damage reduction. They're gonna start taking less and less damage from you. So you'll still see some big numbers, but I'm not guaranteeing you're gonna drop 2 mil on a Shade of Orbis. Anyways, hope you guys liked the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And if there's anything you'd like to see coming up, feel free to ask. I definitely could use some build ideas at the moment. Peace.